Hi, you guys. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Tracy, and I'm with Tracy's Fancy, and I am here to teach you the Furniture 101 Basics course. This is take 2 for us. We actually ran this as a live video course and had planned to send out that recorded version to y'all, but our recording did not take. It didn't save, and we still really don't know why, but the audio was really bad, so I am mic'd up today with the microphone so that you guys can hear me loud and clear, and that way you don't miss anything at all. I would suggest, even though this is a recorded video, that you would get out a pen and paper and maybe take some notes also. Take some little cliff notes, and I have notes here to kind of keep me on track. I'm kind of known for being off track sometime. So anyway, thanks again for being here, and I really enjoyed the live class the other night. So those of you that were with me on that class, thank you so much for being there. Tonight, I just wanted to bring on an entirely different piece of furniture and start from scratch. I am going to talk about the way I choose my furniture pieces and go into cleaning and priming and design a little bit and painting and top coats. And I have taken into consideration all of the questions that you guys have sent me in email. We've asked you to give us some pain points that you have and some fears that you might have if you've never painted furniture before. So let me tell you a little bit about myself, and in case you don't already know, I've been a furniture painter since I was in my 20s, so going on, a little more than 30 years probably, and I have followed all of the trends along the way, and I have been a chalk paint user, like an actual boutique chalk paint user, for probably about 5 years now, and I hope that this is the trend that stays. I can't imagine that it would get any better. I am a chalk paint girl, so letting you guys know that before we go much further. That is definitely my paint of choice, and I'm gonna tell you why. I paint with a lot of detail, and my furniture pieces are usually very, very whimsical. They have a lot of personality, a lot of energy. They're usually feature pieces. They're not a piece that you're just going to revamp and stick in the corner of a room and no one's going to notice. And because of that, the courses that I offer are all about the wow factor, and that's what people usually want from me. But over the years, there are people that come knocking at my door and they're like, hello, what about, how do you get started? How do you pick a piece? How do you make your design? How do you even start painting furniture? I want to do things that you do on furniture, but I don't even know how to start, and we'd like to hear it from you versus going on and pulling information from all over. There's so much information out there from a lot of really, really knowledgeable people, but sometimes it is nice just to get it all from one place. So I decided to step back from my whimsical courses that I offer and take it down to the basics and give you some information so that you don't feel so quite so overwhelmed, and also hoping to encourage you to go from here on into the Whimsical Wonderland courses, where I say everyone can paint that way. It just takes a little bit of patience and some really good tips and tricks. So that's my goal, to get you comfortable with painting basically, and then teach you to paint with more detail. So with that being said, let's get started. So the piece behind me is, the other night I worked on a grandfather clock. That's what I did my cleaning and priming on there. This is a buffet that I have here. This is going to be for a client of mine in Austin, Texas. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. And this piece I'm super, super excited about. As you can see, it's a gorgeous piece. It's a very, very large, chunky buffet. It sits tall. It's got gorgeous legs, gorgeous feet, great insets. And these are the things that you want to look for when you're picking out furniture. Now, I don't only paint antique pieces and vintage pieces. They are my favorite to paint. I started out in the chalk painting world and online social media with mostly French Provincial, and that when the trend came, when everybody else decided they wanted to start painting furniture, that market was eaten up really, really quickly. And that furniture, where I could find something for a dresser for $75 here in San Antonio now, a dresser like that unpainted for me to paint, I'm going to pay $275 for it. Not kidding, $300 for it. Just raw, beat up, still needs work. And so I had to kind of step away from that and just just start opening myself up to all sorts of pieces. So I'm going to show you the beauty of chalk paint and how you can paint a current piece that's on the market today that's been factory mass produced, factory cooked on finish. I'm going to tell you that you can paint glass and metal and ceramic and IKEA pieces. IKEA pieces were not painted forever because chalk paint really, even though it sticks to everything, was really having a problem adhering to the IKEA pieces. There's something that they use, I don't know what it is, but it's baked into the finish and it is super slick, and it's just so hard to get something to bind onto it, which is unfortunate because you can find those pieces on your resale sites for really, for next to nothing, basically. And some of them have a lot of potential. But we have a way to paint those now. So what I look for in a piece, I don't always paint things that are 100% wood. I get asked that a lot. Do you only paint wood pieces? That's my favorite, for sure. That's my favorite. But that's not all that I paint. I will be honest and let you know that nowadays I really only paint for clients. I do not do, I never paint just to sell. And if you see me selling a piece outright, it's because I've painted a piece in my course. I've used it as a teaching material, and it actually is sort of like a byproduct of my course, and so I will offer those to the public. But otherwise, I'm just painting pieces that people are bringing to me, and that's what I paint. So this set, though, actually I found here in San Antonio on Facebook Marketplace. So what I'm answering now is, where do I find my pieces? I used Craigslist for years, but Craigslist, I'm not sure what's happened, but it's sort of gone it's sort of plummeting. I'm not sure why. There seems to be a difference now in what's on Craigslist and what's on Facebook Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace seems to be more like the boutique end of resale online, which is really sad. Craigslist was really good to me for a really long time. Estate sales were really good to me for a really long time, but I just don't have the desire now to go out and beat the paths to visit estate sales and garage sales. But if you are in an area, wherever you are, maybe if you live a little bit more remote or in towns that are smaller cities. San Antonio is a pretty big city, so I just am not going to do that anymore. But there's a lot available. Estate sales are great, and they're so much fun. If I had more time to do it, I would definitely do more of that. You can find some really beautiful furniture with a lot of character there. Right now, I'm using Facebook Marketplace more than anything. And then because people know what I do get contacted a lot also. I'll have people send me photos and say, hey, we're getting rid of this, or so-and-so's getting rid of this. So let people know what you do. Let people know what your interest is, whether it's a hobby or a form of therapy for you, or if it's a business. Let people know what you're doing and put the word out there, and you'll be surprised at how many people will find you and say, hey, I have this available. So that's how I suggest where to find pieces. Then, and let me just tell you guys, back in the day, my husband Matt is filming for me, and he's sitting here in the room, and he's you can speak up, honey, if you want to, but he's here to vouch. He is here to vouch to say that I have been known to drive, back in the day, I would drive hours in one direction to pick up a really cool piece of furniture and then drive hours back, right, Matt?
That's right.
I mean, I don't do that anymore. But I don't mind a good road trip. I just don't. Anyway, so that's that. So let's talk about, what do you look for in a piece of furniture? Well, this is a great example. First and foremost, I look for pieces that speak to me, pieces that talk to me. Whether I'm looking for a piece to paint in a class, or maybe I'm looking for a piece to paint for a client who has contacted me and said, hey, I need a buffet for my dining room. And I say back to them, well, can you send me some photos of your dining room, and can you send me some photos of the rest of your house so I get a good feel for what you like and what your place looks like, kind of their vibe. And then I will set out looking for a piece. And no matter what client I'm looking for and no matter what style of furniture I'm looking for, I always still look for a piece that speaks to me. And when I say speaks to me, it means it has some sort of personality. It almost takes on, what is that called, like personification? It almost takes on a life to me, or it has a personality. And and it's almost asking me to do something to it. So I don't choose a lot of boring pieces, or actually that's changing, and I'll touch on that in just a minute. For the whimsical painting style, I always look for pieces that have curves or arches or insets. And when I say inset, I mean how it's recessed, how this front here is set in. There's a recess area that it separates this front of the dresser drawers from this framed. I loved framed out areas. Even a basic dresser drawer that is just flat and has just the trim, the simple trim around it, I see that as a frame and a place that you can throw in a different pattern or a different color, or decoupage something in there, some sort. You can make it like a feature piece. So insets, curves, arches, beautiful legs. Curved legs are wonderful. These big bulky legs with lots of detail on them, those are just begging for stripes and dots and different colors and metallic gold. So I look for that. Pieces that are a little bit different, like this buffet is flat across the front, and then it has sort of a geometrical shape to it. It drops off at an angle on both sides, and I really, really like that too. That got my attention, not even just the rest of it, just the shape of it was different. Kind of has the front of like a, I don't know, like a hexagon shape or something to the front of it. That's something to look for. Definitely a trim, like a trim across the top, even if it's just a basic dresser, as long as it has like a lip around the top edge of it, that's really nice too, because that is always opens up an option for more detail to be added to make it a little bit different. Carvings, anything with carvings, as much carving as you can get, because carvings are a great way, by themselves they add depth to the piece, but they are a great way to add glazes and colored waxes, and maybe if you want to do a little soft distressing or aging, carvings are a great way to do that. So hardware I don't get too hung up on. If I find a piece that has gorgeous hardware, yeah, I will probably take it. But if it doesn't have gorgeous hardware, I don't get hung up on that. I will replace it, or the trend right now is just to paint right over it. This hardware I am going to take off and paint the piece and then put it back, because I have plans for this right here. As a matter of fact, Matt, do you see the roll, that roll of, is it up there, with the roses on it, the paper that's rolled up in a tube with the roses on it? This is called a furniture transfer by Redesign, and I am doing this piece also for them, to promote for them. And this is called a furniture transfer. We're not going to go into this now because this is not basics, but this beautiful, beautiful rose is going to be actually set in on this front piece here. So before they started coming out with furniture transfers, I would do a lot of hand-painted artwork. I would hand paint roses, or all sorts of designs. I would or I used to decoupage a lot too. So I would do something like that on the inset. So definitely I'm going to have to take the hardware off, because I'm going to have to put this paper down. Now, one of the trends right now is not only to paint over the hardware, but it's called color blending. And I taught that in my summer series, Whimsical Wonderland, in class 2. We color blended, and that's where you use multiple colors to sort of add depth and highlighted areas. And when you are color blending, you don't have to have all these insets. You can actually take a piece that is completely flat and extremely boring, and you can add depth and dimension to a piece like that. Now, you can also color blend with a piece like this, and it's fantabulous. But you can take a really boring piece, a piece that I would never, ever have bought in all of the years of painting, or would be really bummed out when my clients showed up with it and said, "This is what I want you to paint." And I'd be like, that's ugly, but I'll do my best. You can color blend on them now. So that style and that technique really opened up a new kind of a new area for my portfolio, and it can do the same for yours. So, but let's get started with simple and basic, okay? Let's get comfortable with a brush. Let's get comfortable with just chalk paint in general. It's a little bit different than latex paint. And let's get comfortable with how you prepare your piece before you paint, because setting the foundation for that piece is so important before you even put your single color on it. And then having a good single color foundation is so important before you spend a lot of time putting detail and hand painted work on top of that. So very important. All right, so let's say that I bought this piece and I got it home, and it needed some repairs. I try not to buy pieces that are too beat up, because Matt is the one who usually has to fix those up for me, and I like to ask him to do as little as possible for me. I try to keep it, my business. He's got his business. So but if I am open to filling a few holes or a few gouges, or gluing some drawer fronts that have maybe come loose, or maybe the way the drawer fronts, what is this called again? Tongue and groove. The tongue and groove sections have sometimes been popped out, and if we need to put those back together, we'll always use wood glue. So if you've not used these type of products, I just wanted to show you real quick. This right here is called plastic wood, actually. Matt usually uses this. Let me also tell you real quick, I don't get hung up on pieces that are beat up. I sometimes will paint right over them. It is not my goal to have a factory finish look. It's not my goal to have a perfect look on my piece. I love pieces like this that have been around since, the early 1900s, and I like to see that I like their history. I would love to know their history. And to me, the dings and a small crack, or these legs that down at the bottom, can they see the feet here, babe? The bottom of the legs have had the round ball parts knocked off of them, and they are more just like these square cubes. These round ball legs fit across the front. They make a ball. That's supposed to be a ball, and it's not. But I'm not sure that we're going to change that. The old man that I bought it from, he said, you could saw those off and add bun feet to it if you wanted to. Yeah, I could, but it's actually very sturdy still, just like this. And I think once I have it painted and I accent that with a little bit of paint, I think I'm going to leave it like that. So some people get really hung up about that, and they want to, which is fine if you're going to mess with the stain and you're going to try to bring it back to its original look, but I'm not. I am destroying the original look. I'm putting paint all over it, and I'm going to enhance it and make it something completely different than the person that built it, 100 years ago wanted it to look. So some people will buy Bondo and make their own feet and do all those serious repairs. I've never done anything like that. So it's just not my thing. I think that's great, but it's not my thing. So if I'm going to fill some wood, maybe it had a hutch on the top of it. I did a piece recently that had a hutch on the top, and there were some nails sticking out, and we literally had to saw the nails off and then fill some holes. So you just use wood glue. This is wood, not wood glue, wood putty. This is hot pink on the inside. Looks like this. Looks just like that. Ugh, it stinks. Not like fumey, but just like stinky. It smells kind of like puke. Anyway, it's like putty, just rolls into a little ball. It's hot pink. There's a reason for that. You are able to put this in, fill it in, smash it down in the groove, spread it out nice and smooth as you can. Get it mashed down in there, and when it dries, it turns white, or kind of like a natural color. Or does this one turn white?
Turns white.
And
I suggest using a putty knife.
Yeah, Matt uses a putty knife when he uses wood glue. I use my fingers. Not wood glue, putty. I use my fingers. I am a touchy-feely person. I don't use rollers when I paint. I use brushes. I like to feel the movement, and he uses a putty knife, and when he sees me doing it, he's like, babe, use a putty knife. Anyway, you will fill that area with putty. You let it dry. When it turns white, it's dry, and then you want to go back with some sandpaper, and babe, sorry. He gets a little comfortable in his chair. You'll go back with some sandpaper and sand over the top of it and get it nice and smooth with your surface. It's a sanding block, a blue sanding block with a piece of sandpaper. You will sand right over the top of that and smooth it out. Thank you. I want to show you something about sandpaper. You can use, if it's a lot of area that you of course can use an electric sander, but if it's just a small area, I usually just touch it up with a piece of sandpaper. If you use, this goes on my electric sander, but I use these also to sand. If you use a piece just like this without any cushion behind it, it's really crazy. When you go to sand it off, it's very, very rough and hard on your surface. Sandpaper comes in what's called grits, and the higher the number, the softer or the finer the grit is. The lower the number, the more coarse. They call it fine or coarse. I call it rough and soft. So if it's an 80 grit, that is like sawtooth. I mean, that is going to scratch the crud out of your paint finish if you're distressing later. But so I usually use at least 220 grit, which is like a fine grit and is used for more like finishing, and it goes all the way up to like 400 grit. But I buy a sanding block. I've probably had this sanding block, I don't know, several years probably, this one sanding block. I don't like sanding blocks. I think they suck. They work like one use, and the sanding aspect of them is gone. And you pay like $5 for one of these or $4. That's crazy. I'm like, what good was that? You can't even use it anymore. It doesn't even make a difference. So what I do is I've kept this one block all these years, and I just take a piece of sandpaper and I just wrap it around it just like that. Just like that. I just want you to try it because it's amazing the difference in using this little cushion behind it. When you sand, it just is a much smoother, softer, forgiving way to sand than if you just use just the paper and you're putting pressure with your fingers on the back side. I don't know, I can't explain it. I did it actually because it was easier to hold on to, and I have tested it time and time again, and it is a softer sand. So when you're repairing, maybe that's not as important, but when we talk about distressing at the end after we've painted, that is this is important. So nice little Tracy tip right here. Okay, the other thing that you may need to use is wood glue. There's many different brands. This one is called Titebond. Matt picks these up at Home Depot, both the putty and the glue. This shop would not be the shop if I didn't have some putty and some glue, because we use it probably every project gets some form of putty or glue. Not a lot, just might be a little bit. This piece, I don't think it needs it, but there's a table that came with this that is going to need some repair work, and we will be using both of these products on that. So if you are setting up your shop and getting ready to paint some pieces, and you've got some pieces that you already have that need to be painted, you probably need to have this on hand for some simple repairs, and some clamps, some furniture. What do they call those? They're not furniture clamps. Are they furniture clamps? They're actually called furniture clamps. Because after you glue, you need to clamp it and or put a weight on it if it's something you can just set a weight on, like if it's a surface. But if it's a drawer front or something, you're going to need to clamp it the way you want it, so it gives the glue time to bind. And I think it really only takes a couple of hours for wood glue to dry, but Matt likes it to be 24 hours. And I have a struggle with that because I'm super fast paced and I don't have a lot of patience. So, but he usually does it at night, and then we sleep and I get up the next day and then I'm able to make my piece pretty. So, okay, so we talked about that. So let's talk about cleaning. Cleaning is so important. This piece, the legs are filthy with just dust. I can see the dust and I can see the dirt, but that's not all that you need to remove from a piece of furniture. It is so important with chalk paint to clean your piece properly, and there's a reason for that. That was a learning curve for me. You know, more than 5 years ago when I first started using chalk paint, that was a learning curve for me because I painted with latex for years. And then I started making my own chalk paint with latex. I made latex and, you know, I would dump calcium carbonate in it, or plaster of Paris, or non-sanded grout, or I think that's what it's called. I would mix that in my latex paint and kind of make my own chalk paint, which now I know is not what I should have been doing back then. It's just not easy to work with, and you still have the latex quality in your paint, and they don't blend well. They don't allow you to be as artistic. So when you finally decide to use a really good chalk paint, it will make all the difference in what you end up producing. But the reason that you need to clean really well for chalk paint is because chalk paint is all natural products, that minerals and products that are in the paint itself. That's what makes up the paint, and it leaves it very natural and very porous. When Latex has special binding agents that create sort of like a seal on their own, so you don't get as much what we call bleed through from the old, especially old pieces like this. This old wood, the old veneers will allow bleed through. And bleed through can be caused by a couple of different things. One is nicotine. If you've got a piece that was around cigar smokers and cigarette smokers all those years, which, think about it, people smoked in that era in their homes. They had smoking rooms in their homes. It was fancy, it was a status thing. And so a lot of these pieces have been very exposed to that sort of thing. You may not smell it, but the nicotine will seep out, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. My non-scientific my non-scientific explanation. Another thing that will seep through is something called, old furniture polishes, Old English, Pledge, things that people have used over and over and over again on a weekly basis, trying to keep their wood beautiful and shiny. The grandfather clock that I'm painting has been, oh my goodness, it's from the 1970s. It came from Okinawa, and this lady has taken such good care of it, and the wood's in great shape, but it was just seeping through my primer even. So that is years and years of oils. And the other thing is called wood tannins, and tannins are in wood themselves. They're in trees. They're in the trees, and it's a pigment that's inside the wood. And so when you paint with like a lacquer or a latex paint on furniture, you aren't going to have those the tannins are not going to come through. But when you switch over to chalk paint, because of the ease of use, the durability, how long it lasts, the way you're able to be artistic and do gorgeous finishes with chalk paint, but the product itself is very open and porous, and it's waiting for you to seal it with wax or a top coat of some sort. But unfortunately, when you put not the wax, it won't happen with wax, but when you put the water-based top coat on top of your chalk paint, which is what I use to seal my pieces, as soon as you do that, for some reason, it's some form of osmosis, I'm assuming. The tannins are literally pulled through the chalk paint because it's open and porous, pulled through the chalk paint they're being pulled to the top coat, to that sealer, to that water-based sealer. And it comes through in a color. It comes through, sometimes it's like the color of wine, sometimes it's pink, sometimes it's orange. It just I think it depends on the wood type. But usually it's pretty instant. Like as soon as you start putting your top coat on, you're like, what? And you're looking at your top coat in your container and it's clear. But when you're putting it on there and you've got it going over a light color like white or light pink or a pale green or a peach, it's pulling through and it's literally changing and showing on your piece, and it ruins. You have to paint over it. You have to seal it properly and start over. So it's unfortunate. I've had it happen a few times when I first started using chalk paint, and I don't want that to happen for you. So we're going to go into primers right now, and cleaners right now, and then primers, and I will get you all set up with no doubt, a 100% proof that you will not have bleed through anymore if you will follow my simple steps. So let's get started. So this is my piece right here, and like I said, it's very dirty, especially on the legs. I can see the dust and dirt. That is not really what I'm concerned with so much. I mean, obviously I would want to clean that off, but I need to run a special cleaner on this piece to bring out to get as much oils and nicotine and residue that is on here as I possibly can. So what I've used forever was vinegar and water. I would use warm water and vinegar, 50-50, 1-to-1. That's just what I've always used. It cut through really well. It brought off a lot of dirt very satisfyingly on my paper towel. And I would just clean and clean until it stopped. That worked for me. I was okay with that, and I thought I was getting a really good clean. But I am a Dixie Belle brand ambassador, and I work with them and promote their products. And I thought long and hard. I had worked with another paint company for a very, very long time, and when I made the switch, it needed to be like a really good product in order for me to promote it. And I'm super, super happy, and I want you to know that I don't promote anything that I don't use every single day here in my shop. And Dixie Belle has a cleaner called White Lightning, and they told me about it, and they said, we really want you to try it. And I was like, a cleaner? That doesn't excite me. That doesn't make my, you don't get instant gratification. It doesn't make my piece pretty. Okay, fine, I'll try it. I'm like, whatever. I use my vinegar and water. People aren't going to they're not going to buy a special cleaner. Well, I was wrong. So I'm here to tell you about it. This is called White Lightning. It's actually TSP, which is trisodium phosphate. That's basically what's in it. It looks like Epsom salt inside this little container here. This is just an 8 ounce. This should last you a really long time, and it is on my supply list. So speaking of supply list, I'm not sure if you've gotten this yet. At the end of my course here today, I'm going to tell you about 3 different bonus lists that I have put together for you as like little gifts, little thank you gifts, and I hope you find them useful. And one of them is a supply list, which is just basic supplies that you really should consider getting to have in your shop that will set you up for a really successful painting project. And I know that some of you are taking the course that are already painters, and y'all are here just to catch any little tips that I have, so I hope I don't miss out. We also are going to have I'm going to answer some questions at the end of the course. Some people did ask some really good questions, and I'm either covering them during the course right now, or I'm going to answer them at the end. So this piece right here, I'm just using a bowl. I usually use a ceramic bowl. Can they see the ground? I usually use a ceramic bowl of water, and this actually says to use 2 heaping tablespoons in a gallon. I never use a gallon. I guess that's if you would mix it up ahead of time and keep a gallon in your shop. I don't do that. I just do it per project. So I just usually use a ceramic bowl, and I put just about a teaspoon in it, just a heaping teaspoon. That's all I do. And then I just stir that up and let it dissolve. And then you want to use gloves because this stuff is very irritating to the skin. Even Matt has used it for me before, and he was like, yeah, babe, don't ever not use gloves with that. It is irritating to the skin, but it definitely does the trick. All right, so that's that. And I am going to start out. I'm just going to use paper towels here. I use white rags in my shop a lot. I buy them at Home Depot. They come in it's called a roll of rags. So we're just going to get started right down here. I usually use quite a bit so that the water can really seep in. The White Lightning can get in look at this. Y'all see that? Is that not crazy? That's crazy. Really, really, really is. Now, do I use anything with tooth or grit? I usually don't unless there is like some really deep areas where I need to use like a toothbrush, an old toothbrush. I might do that. But some people like, do you use a scrubber? Do you use a wire brush or anything like that? No, I don't. I just use a lot of water. I give it look at that. That's crazy. I give it a really good bath. You don't need to scrub. You just need to expose it to this White Lightning and just use a lot of water. And it'll get in all the nooks and crannies. Just let it run down. I don't know if you can see, it's just running. And that's what I do. So we are not obviously going to do this entire piece today. There's no way we can do that in an hour. But I am going to clean the front for you. This gives me a lot of opportunity here to show you how to paint, different brushes to paint, different ways to clean, how to do different brush strokes. So we're going to do all of that right here on this front surface. So just lots of water, just kind of wring your rag, let it run down. And normally I would take those off, but I'm not going to stop what I'm doing right now to do that. I did loosen them up for us though. So just giving it a good bath. Look at that. You just don't get that much off with vinegar and water. Sad to say. I do think that I still was getting, I've never, in all the years, I've never had a client come to me and say, or call and say, hey, my paint, my piece doesn't look good anymore. My piece is, never have I had one peel or anything like that. So I do think that the vinegar water is still a good cleaner, but at once, I can't imagine going back to it after I see the way this cleans. All right, we're going to get it good and clean, and then we're going to rinse it. with some water. So I'll just need a spray. I have a spray bottle, babe. I'm just gonna spray it down. Now what this does, when this starts to dry, you literally can see, that it looks sort of like it's been stripped. Now I had some people ask me on the course the other day about, do I ever use, what did they ask, Matt? Liquid sand? If I use liquid sand on a piece, which is sort of like I guess like a deglosser. I have used a deglosser on a dining room table and chair set one time. This was a long time ago, and it had a super high gloss finish to it. And I don't know, I didn't need to do it. You don't need to do that with chalk paint. You just don't. But I did. And I won't use it again. I've never used it again. It's super fumey. It smells so caustic. And I don't know if any of you know, but I do have an autoimmune disease. It's my liver. And I have to be really, really careful now to exposure to things. This is just water. I'm just rinsing off the TSP, just letting it run right off. Anyway, I have to be super careful with what I use and super careful with what I expose myself to. I use gloves. If something has any fumes at all that are noticeable, I always wear a mask. And so I have to be super choosy in the products that I use. And really, honestly, we all should be. So that's why I love using chalk paint too, because it's all natural. And although I have heard there are some chalk paints. See, I'm still getting stuff off, but I'm okay. That doesn't mean I'm not going to paint it. I think with the year's worth of stain and oils on here, there's no way you would actually get all of that completely off, but I feel really, really good to get this much off. And you do just you want to rinse it like I did with the spray bottle, just so that you get the white lightning removed. Okay, so that's that. We'll let those little cracks up there dry a little bit. And I'm going to talk about primer with you, okay? All right. Okay, so if Matt would be so kind to get me my primer options, I'm going to sit here and have a little primer discussion with y'all, which is super important, and one of my favorite things to talk about. All right, so thank you, babe. You've got your piece, you've done your repairs, you have cleaned it really well, in which I'm gonna have to spend, oh my gosh, just looking at the way this looks compared to that, as far as cleaning goes, is pretty amazing. You've cleaned it really well, and now you're ready to prime it, or you're ready to paint it, okay? You're ready to paint it, and you are trying to decide, do you need to prime it? Why do I need to prime it? Chalk paint is supposed to stick to anything, right? You know, it's no prime, no sand, right? No prime, no sand. That is true. You can absolutely no prime, no sand. Clean it and you can paint it. And there are many, many pieces that you can do that, and I love when I can do that. But you need to have a little bit of knowledge and education into making that judgment call, making the decision when you can do that and when you can't. So let's talk about it here. When you are going to paint a piece of furniture and it's dark, like this, for example. If you want to paint a piece of, I call this wood. You want to paint a piece of wood, dark wood, and you want it, you love the shabby chic style, and you're going to paint it white. When you go from dark wood to white furniture, well, I can't really say shabby chic style because you might distress that. Let's just say you want it to be white. When you go from dark wood to white, you are going to use quite a bit of paint. Dixie Belle has fantastic coverage, but if you're going from dark wood to white, you're for sure going to use 2 coats of paint. And if you're going to seal with the top coat, you are more than likely going to pull wood tannins through that white paint. So you need to prime your piece. If you're going to be painting it from dark wood to light paint, you want to prime your piece. It's like we need a flow chart. Someone want to make a flow chart for me? Someone make me a Tracy's Fancy flow chart, please. I got distracted by Matt. What are you doing?
Just setting up the light.
He's distracting me. I always say I would make a terrible news person because I'm like, hey, what are you doing back there? You're distracting me. So if you know that you are going to go to white paint, you need to block wood tannins. You do not want bleed through. So you need to prime. Let me show you your options. Shellac base bin and shellac. Let's go back a year. About a year ago is when I came on with Dixie Belle. That hasn't been a year. It's probably been 6 months. Prior to that, for years, I have used shellac. Once I discovered shellac from other furniture painting groups and all, this was my primer. I used it on everything. I have knowledge, and I know usually when I'm going to need to prime and when I don't need to prime, or when I'm going to have bleed through and when I'm not. But I just decided it wasn't worth it just wasn't worth the stress of painting, and then right when you go to put your top coat on, you're like, oh, is it going to show through? I couldn't stand the stress. I'm like, you know what, from now on I'm just going to slap some shellac on all my pieces. So that's what I did, and I went through a lot of shellac. This is shellac right here. It's by Zinsser. You can get it at Home Depot, at Lowe's. You can get it at your local hardware store. It's been around for years. My dad used to use it. My grandpa used it. It's been around for years. Yes, it is originally made to be a top coat. That's what it is. You shellac over wood projects. You shellac over your, people put it on cutting boards and tabletops. But chalk painters realize that it stops bleed through. It literally will seal the wood. And then when you paint chalk paint on top of it, those tannins don't get pulled through because this causes a barrier. This builds a barrier. So it works really, really well under chalk paint. It's great. But it stinks like you cannot imagine. It is so, if you've never smelled it, it is so, so, so strong. And so when I use shellac now, since I became ill, I use a mask. I have to wear a mask to use this product. And all those years that I used this product and I didn't wear a mask, I mean, I can't, the fumes they give you a headache. They're really, really strong. It works. I'm not going to tell you not to use it. But if you do, use a mask. Also, another problem with it is it's very, very thin. It's like thinner than water. It runs. I do believe that it's alcohol based. So this is actually clear. It comes in clear and it comes in amber. Do not buy the amber. There's no need to buy the amber. The clear is clear, and that's what you want. So you have to chase it. So if I'm going to shellac the top of this piece, which I'm not, but if I were, that's great because it's a nice flat horizontal surface. But if you're working on a vertical surface like this and you go to put shellac on here, it just runs. I mean, it's running faster than you can finish painting up here. So you're chasing those runs all over the place. So that's kind of annoying. Now also the thing is if you paint with the shellac, to block your wood tannins, you aren't blocking any color at all. You're just blocking the wood tannins. But then you're going to paint white, so you still have to do like 2 coats of white if you're using Dixie Belle. If you're using other chalk paint products, I promise you're going to do 3 coats of white at least. I mean, there have been whites that I've done in the past with other companies that I've had to do like 4 coats of white, and I still had some open areas. So anyway, this doesn't help you with color blocking at all. Tannin block, yes. Color block, no. So Zinsser decided they would get smart and they would come out with a primer this is Zinsser also, that they would come out with a primer that was thin and would color block and stain block also, a tannin block, that has white in it. So it's white. So now it's color blocking the wood and it's supposed to stop your bleed through, right? Well, this is where you need to be careful. This one will not block bleed through. This one says water based. Right here it says bullseye 1, 2, 3 water base. Okay? Water base is not going to block bleed through. Do not be confused with this one. This is also by Zinsser. And it's called BIN, B-I-N. Now, why did they make that look like that? The B-I-N-1-2-3. That's so confusing to me. This one, if you look up close, says shellac based. Okay? So Matt's going to show you there where this one says shellac based. This one is water based. This one is also white. Okay, so do not ever use this one. There's no reason to use this. If you're chalk painting, don't bother. The 1, 2, 3 by Zinsser, don't buy it. It's water based. Go bye-bye. I bought a gallon of it thinking I was buying the right thing, and I used it once, and I used it, and I put my chalk paint on, and I had bleed through. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? And then I take it to the place, and they're like, well, you bought the water-based. And I'm like, it's water-based. And they're like, you needed the shellac-based. So these are the two that I'm telling you. Shellac, clear, but you will not get bleed through, but it will not block your color. Shellac, white, you will not get bleed through, and it will block your color, okay? Why would you need clear or white? Why wouldn't you just always use the white? Well, the reason is if you are painting furniture and you know that you want to distress it, that you're going to bring through you want wood carving to come through, you want to see your wood. Let's say you're gonna paint this a wine color or a pale green, and you want to be able to rub back the pale green and let the raw wood show through. That's a beautiful look, right? Well, if you've primed the whole thing with white, if you've used the white primer, then when you go to rub off your green paint, you're gonna see white. You aren't gonna see that wood. You're gonna have to go all the way through to the white. Through the white also. So if you know you're going to, ahead of time, that you're going to try to bring some natural wood through by distressing some of the edges or over carvings, then you want to make sure that you use a clear primer, okay? Clear. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Use a white primer if you don't plan on doing any distressing at all, because if you distress back, you're going to see green and then white and then wood, and that's probably not the look that you want to go for. But I've got some better news for you, because these products stink, and I have to wear gloves and I have to wear a mask, and you chase them because they're super, super, super thin, okay? So I have good news. This, and also, babe, will you go, there should be up there one that says Boss Clear. So then Dixie Belle, right after I came on with them, these products are, I don't think maybe they're a year old by now. Not even, I don't think they are. They said, we have come out with the primer of all primers. So we are so excited, we're gonna send them to you. And I'm like, okay, what's that? And they said, it is a clear primer and a white primer option that are better than shellac. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. And they're like, yeah, they are. Okay, they are. So if you're the type of person who only is going to buy at Home Depot or Lowe's, you are a kind of person who needs to get in your car and go there and see and touch and feel, I get it that you want to buy those products. So that I'm giving that to you. The shellac is the way to go. If you are someone who doesn't mind looking for your local Dixie Belle retailer in your town, you can go to dixiebelle.com if you want and put in your zip code, and it'll tell you where a retailer is near you. Or you can follow my link and order online. If you like Amazon and you love to order and ship, Dixie Belle's delivery is super, super fast. And if you use my link that's on the product list, I also get a kickback as a thank you from them. It doesn't cost you any more money, but I get some of the profits of that. They give that to me, which I thank you in advance. If you use my supply list, I really, really appreciate that. But this is them. I'm so excited about these. This is called BOSS, and they named it BOSS on purpose. It's an acronym. It stands for Blocks, Odors, Stains, and Stops. Blocks odors, stains, and stops. BOSS. Blocks odors, stains, and stops bleed through, and they're not kidding. It really, really does. If you have a piece that has a lot of nicotine odor, or when you open it up, you know the smell. If you bought it in an estate sale and you open it up and it smells like mothballs, or it smells like your great grandmother's lingerie drawer, and I don't mean that gross. I just mean it's got like that musty, like old drawer smell. If you're doing it for a client, you really sometimes want to try to block that odor. So these work really well. They do block the odor. Matt is Matt is showing me right now where we are on time. So we're 15 minutes in. Okay, great. So same thing here. They offer a white and they offer a clear for the exact same reasons that I already went over, so we don't need to do that. If you are going to paint over wood with a light chalk paint, you want to prime your piece so that you do not have bleed through come through. Now, if you're using black or a dark burgundy or a purple or a hot pink, something like that, a fuchsia, a teal, you don't have to worry about bleed through. It usually does not show, but I just don't even usually like to take the chance. So I usually put at least a clear primer on there. So Boss also comes in clear. I know that they both look like they're white. This one looks white. This one's a little bit more natural bone looking color, but it's clear. If you open them up, you can see the same thing. One is clear, and the reason I'm showing you this is because if you order this online and it comes to you, this one is white. This is their white primer. This is their clear primer. So they're a little bit different looking, but don't open this when you get it and say, hey, I ordered clear and it came to me and it's white. No, it's clear, I promise. You put it on and it dries clear. And the reason that it does that, I believe the reason it does that, is it actually helps you when you're priming a really large piece like the buffet. When you're priming a super big piece and you're doing all the detail and starting on one end, and it takes a long time to prime the piece. When you're doing that, you sometimes forget where you've been. Like you don't even know where you've been. So this helps you be able to kind of see where you've been. It takes a little bit for it to get clear, but it will become clear. Would you get me a chip brush or bring me the brush bowl, babe? Because we're going to move to brushes now. All right, so, okay, so we are going to move on to brushes now. Okay, babe, we can do that at any time. You let me know when you're ready.
Let's do it now.
Okay,